Hello, everyone. Welcome to video lecture 1 on the chapter of young adulthood or emerging adulthood. This is actually one of my favorite chapters. I think because often it speaks to the majority of my students. It's also a chapter that I feel like I wish I'd had some of this information when I was a young adult. And it's a really dynamic period of life. So this period, this chapter refers to the time in life that extends from past adolescence into middle age. So roughly from about mid-20s until about 40, right? That's your traditional student. This is considered to be a potentially very stressful time. So we're including here that time from graduating high school, you go to college, graduate high school, and family formation, right? So lots of stuff is happening during this period. Our personalities are becoming more fully formed. You remember, our brains are forming from the back to the front. Your frontal lobe's not fixed until around 25. So we're figuring out exactly who we are, what our life goals are, and how we approach, or how well we do, how we approach the decisions that we make during this period of life. There's lots of variables that are influencing the decisions we make. For instance, what's considered acceptable for that particular, for your age and that particular culture, right? So what are your social norms? What are the social norms about a 25-year-old woman or a 30-year-old man? Right? How much money you have. So what kind of economic privileges do you have? The resources if you want to study abroad? Do you have the privileges or the resources if you want to go to an elite school? Or even if you can go to school at all, right? How much money you have may influence if you go to a 4-year school or a 2-year school, or if you have to work and go to school, right? So money makes a big difference. If you need a job that pays, that includes health insurance, or one that's, that kind of thing. What your parents expect, right? So, which seems like kind of ironic, we're talking about adulthood, but your parents still have significant influence on the decisions you make in your early 20s. They may be paying all your bills. They may be paying your rent. I tell a story about when I went away to college and had a full ride scholarship, and my dad told me I gave up my scholarship, and I came home and my dad said, "You can't live here anymore. It's time for you to go." So clearly his parental expectations were that I go, right? Or that I move out after I graduated high school. On the other hand, we let our children live with us as long as they were going to school or working. So, anyway, different rules. The economy. So what kind of jobs are available? Right now, there's lots of jobs available. So I'm recording this, in October of 2021. The previous lecture that I had recorded for this chapter, I was recording during the lockdown when people were at home. So young people today have more options in the workforce than they did simply a year and a half ago. There's been lots of research done on what's referred to, they're calling this the Great Resignation, but just 10 years ago, we were talking about what was called a recession generation. So all of these people graduated from college and there were simply no jobs to be had. So all of these things, that's really partly what this whole course is about, is the influence of society as to how we grow up and who we become. And then political climate. What we mean by political climate could be, is your nation at war? Or is it normative for people to be protesting in the streets? What is considered, do you get vaccinated? Do you vaccinate your children? All of these things fall into this sort of political climate. Okay. As we've seen with all of these chapters, we'll highlight some of the physical changes, some of the cognitive intellectual changes, and then some of the socio-emotional changes. So really what this slide is about, and what it's emphasizing, is the general well-being of people in their early adulthood. They are intellectually as sharp as pretty much you're ever going to be. It peaks sometime around 25 and then it all starts to slump off. So it's easier for you to learn new things. You're probably really close to your physical peak, your physical strength, right? Your athletic prowess in your early adulthood. So you're physically most able, you're intellectually most able to learn, you're most resilient to illness and disease. But the thing is that all of these things, all of these advantages that are coming from early adulthood, we might be engaging in things that later on are going to catch up with us, right? So that's what's sort of referred to as secondary aging. So if you're spending your 20s, going to the bars or making bad health decisions, those things will have an accumulative effect. They may not be affecting you at 26, but they may affect you at 46, right? Because they have this accumulative effect. The major cause of death at this stage in life is accidents. You're most prone to disease, and that doesn't catch up with you. What does it say on here? Until you get to about 35. After about 35, so that would be considered late, early. That's like right on the edge of middle age. When illnesses and diseases start to catch up with you again. Okay, as I mentioned, earlier in this lecture, this is a really stressful time. There are lots of things going on in your life. We're making lots of decisions. We're moving away to college. We're getting degrees. We're starting careers. We're family forming, and so it's right, I guess, to discuss the role of stress in early adulthood. You may remember in your psychology class, when we were discussing what the definition of stress is. What do we mean by stress? Well, I would argue in pop culture, we use that term incorrectly. From a psychological perspective, stress simply means some environmental demand on our resources, right? And stress is, I don't want to suggest that it's not a thing, but it is a cognitive thing, right? It's all about, and I've tried to highlight it here, it's all about how we perceive environmental things and then the resources that we have available to us. Do we have the time to solve that problem? Do we have the money to solve that problem? Do we have people to talk to help us talk it out? And so how we respond to these environmental demands, how we interpret them, right? Do we interpret these things that we are expected to do, these decisions we're expected to make, do we interpret them as threats, as things that we can overcome, or are they things that we don't perceive? So here in this definition where it says right here, physical or emotional response that threaten or challenge us, right? So what we mean by that is some people thrive under a little bit of stress because it challenges them to be the best they can be, right? It challenges them to learn new things. My mom always talks about that language. She always talks about, oh, it's just another adventure. But a threat is something that you don't feel like you can overcome. So when we were in the psychology class, we were talking about internal versus external locus of control. If I feel within my psyche, within my mind and my consciousness that I have the resources to overcome the situation, I will handle the demands better than if I feel like I can't do it, right? I won't cope as well with stress. I hope that makes some sense. The significance from a psychological development perspective is this idea right here, this psychoneuroimmunology. And so that is psychology, what's going on in our head, neuro, which is our immune response or our brain, and then our immunology, which is our immune response. And the idea is that all those things are interconnected. The way I think about and perceive my environment affects the way remember we talked about, that's in psych, right? The mind-body connection, and that mind-body connection will inform my immune response. So it's, as I emphasized again in that intro to psych, stress does not make you sick. Stress does not make you sick. Stress uses up resources that then are not used to preventing illness. So it doesn't make you sick, but it enables you to become sick or to get sick, or it, yes, there you go. I'll just sort of leave it at that. Okay. I'm trying to watch my time here. Notice I'm getting close to 10 minutes. Stressors, right? So these are events or demands that threaten our well-being. Acute sort of refers to, right? Acute stressors refer to sort of short-term things, right? Like you've got a really busy week and you're trying to manage how you're going to get your kids to school and Halloween, and you've got this big project at work. So it's a relatively short-term kind of a stressor. And then chronic is something that continues week after week, month after month, potentially year after year. So things like pollution and poverty, abusive relationships, unemployment, all of those are considered sort of chronic stressors. Physical health problems are chronic stressors, acute things. Now, in the psych course, we emphasize this idea of daily hassles. Those are the little things, right? The little things that build up and accumulate. And acute stressors can have lots of little things that accumulate, but they're for a short period of time. Chronic stressors can have lots of things that accumulate, except they never go away. You never get a break. Right? And I don't know if any of you out there have ever had that sensation where you just wanted to take a vacation from your life, right? You just wanted to, that would kind of be, I would argue that that's an indication there's some sort of chronic stressors. Okay, consequences of stressors, that was pretty much addressed in the psychoneurological when we talk about psychosomatic. So basically what happens is all of these environmental, these emotional, and these social demands have implications for our body's ability to fight off illness. So we are prone to illness. But again, it's not that stress makes us sick. It's that stress uses up resources that could have otherwise been used to resist disease. The classic experiment was, I think they used sleep deprivation as a physical stressor, and they exposed people, 2 different groups, to the cold virus, like they swab up their nose. And I think they always use students because these are usually done at universities, but the students that were exposed, that had enough sleep, did not become ill. The students that did not, that experienced the stress of sleep deprivation, became ill. So again, it's not that stress didn't make them sick, right? It's the exposure to the cold virus and the inability to fight it off because those resources were used fighting off stress. Okay, I'm going to stop right here. And when I come back, I want to talk about some ways that we deal with stress and how useful it is to know these ways as young adults so that you can use them in your future life.